Laura Bennett had always been good with words. It's not just the kind of words people spoke every day, but the tricky ones, the ones that hid meaning beneath layers of sound or silence. She worked as a translator for the United Earth Diplomatic Corps, a job that required her to understand more than just language. It was about understanding people, or in this case, aliens. The year was 2147. Humanity's reach had stretched far beyond Earth. Space exploration wasn't new anymore. It was routine. But contact with intelligent alien life, that was still uncharted territory. When the Valenza mysterious species discovered near the edge of human-explored space agreed to meet for diplomatic talks, it felt like history in the making. And Laura knew she was lucky to be part of it. Her assignment came with little warning. One morning, she received an official message from headquarters. Report to Docking Bay 12 within 48 hours. The note didn't explain much, but Laura didn't need details. She'd heard rumors about the upcoming mission, whispers in the corridors of the Diplomatic Corps building. Humanity was finally ready to step onto the interstellar stage, and she was going to help make it happen. When Laura arrived at the designated dock, she found herself standing before a sleek spacecraft designed for long-distance travel. Its metallic surface gleamed under artificial lights, and its engines hummed softly, waiting to roar to life. Nearby, 3 other members of the delegation were already gathered. Captain Ryan Mitchell stood tall, his uniform crisp and immaculate. He carried himself with authority, though there was something weary in his eyes, as if he'd seen too many missions go wrong. Beside him was Dr. Emily Dawson, a scientist whose enthusiasm seemed boundless despite her quiet demeanor. Her fingers tapped nervously against the tablet she held, scrolling through data about the Valens' biology. Completing the group was Sam Turner, a tech specialist with a knack for fixing things no one else could. His casual posture and loose-fitting jacket made him look out of place next to the others, but Laura knew better than to underestimate him. "Glad you're here," Captain Mitchell said when he noticed Laura approaching. His tone was polite but distant. "We've got a lot riding on this. I'll do my best," Laura replied, adjusting the strap of her bag. Inside, she carried her most valuable tool, a portable translation device loaded with algorithms, capable of deciphering even the strangest forms of communication. It wasn't perfect, but it was the best humanity had to offer as they boarded the ship. Laura couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was different from anything she'd done before. Sure, she'd translated for diplomats and negotiators, but those conversations had always been grounded in familiar contexts. This time, the stakes were higher. The Valens weren't human. Their culture, their values, their very way of thinking, they were all unknowns. And yet, Laura's role remained the same, to bridge the gap between 2 vastly different worlds. The journey took several days, during which the small team prepared as best they could. They reviewed what little information Earth scientists had gathered about the Valens. From what they understood, the aliens communicated using harmonic frequency sounds that humans couldn't naturally produce or hear without assistance. Their written language consisted of intricate patterns of light and color, displayed across their shimmering exoskeletons. Everything about them seemed alien, beautiful, and slightly terrifying. Laura spent most of her time testing and refining her translation software. She ran simulations based on recorded samples of Valen speech, tweaking settings until the device produced coherent translations. Still, doubts lingered in her mind. What if the program failed? What if she misunderstood something crucial? The thought weighed heavily on her, but she pushed it aside. Worrying wouldn't change anything. On the 4th day, the ship entered orbit around a barren moon, where the meeting was scheduled to take place. According to the agreement, neither side would bring weapons or display aggression. The location itself was neutral, a dead rock floating in the shadow of a dying star. As the vessel descended toward the surface, Laura peered out the window, trying to spot any sign of the Valens. At first, there was nothing but endless gray plains and jagged cliffs. Then, suddenly movement caught her eye. A massive structure loomed in the distance, unlike anything Laura had ever seen. It looked like a living organism fused with machinery, its surface rippling with iridescent hues. Above it hovered a fleet of ships, each one glowing faintly, as if lit from within. These were the Valen's vessels, elegant and otherworldly. "They're waiting," Captain Mitchell announced, breaking the silence. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it that betrayed his tension. The team disembarked carefully, stepping onto the dusty ground of the moon. The air was thin, requiring oxygen masks, but the gravity was manageable. As they approached the structure, the entrance opened, revealing a group of Valens standing inside. They were tall, taller than any human, with elongated limbs and segmented bodies covered in a glossy exoskeleton. Bioluminescent markings pulsed along their frames, shifting colors in response to their movements. Their faces, if they could be called that, were smooth and featureless except for two large, multifaceted eyes that glimmered with intelligence. Laura stepped forward, clutching her translation device tightly. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to remain composed. This was at the moment she'd been preparing for. Behind her, the rest of the team followed closely, their footsteps muffled by the soft soil. "Greetings," Laura began, speaking slowly and clearly. Her words traveled through the device, which converted them into harmonic tones audible to the Valens. The leader of the group, identified earlier as Kale 7, tilted its head slightly, studying her with unreadable eyes. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Kale 7 responded, emitting a series of musical notes that resonated through the air. The translation device processed the sounds, displaying text on its screen. "You have come." "Yes," Laura replied, her voice steady despite the flutter in her stomach. "We have come to talk, to learn, and to share." Kale 7 paused, its markings flickering briefly. Whether this was a sign of approval or skepticism, Laura couldn't tell, but the fact that the Valens hadn't attacked or dismissed them outright gave her hope. Maybe, just maybe, this mission would succeed after all. Over the next few hours, the two groups exchanged basic information. The Valens shared insights into their energy-efficient technologies, while the humans offered medical advancements developed from centuries of research. Dr. Dawson asked questions about Valen biology, her curiosity evident even through her mask. Sam examined some of the equipment brought by the aliens, marveling at its complexity. Meanwhile, Laura focused on maintaining clear communication, ensuring that both sides understood each other correctly. For a while, everything seemed to be going well. The atmosphere was tense but cooperative, a delicate balance sustained by mutual caution and curiosity. But then, during a ceremonial exchange of greetings, disaster struck. Laura translated a phrase meant to express gratitude, selecting a word from the device's database that seemed appropriate. Unbeknownst to her, the algorithm had chosen poorly. Instead of conveying respect, the translation came across as mockery on insult so grave that it violated one of the Valens' most sacred cultural norms. Kale 7 reacted instantly, emitting a sharp, discordant sound that reverberated through the chamber. The other Valens shifted into defensive postures, their markings flashing erratically. "What happened?" Captain Mitchell demanded, his hand instinctively moving toward the weapon he wasn't allowed to carry. I don't know," Laura stammered, frantically checking the device. It must have mistranslated something before she could finish. Kale 7 spoke again, its voice cold and final. The translation appeared on the screen. "You are guilty of war crimes against our people." The room fell silent. Laura felt the blood drain from her face as the weight of the accusation sank in. To the Valens, intent mattered little. A mistake was still a crime, and crimes demanded consequences. In that moment, Laura realized the enormity of her role and the potential cost of failure. The silence that followed Kale 7's declaration was suffocating. Laura stood frozen, her mind racing as the weight of the accusation pressed down on her. The Valens' glowing markings pulsed angrily, casting eerie shadows across the chamber. Their towering forms loomed over the human delegation, making them feel smaller and more vulnerable than ever before. Captain Ryan Mitchell stepped forward, his voice firm but measured. "There must be a misunderstanding," he said, his words translated into harmonic tones by Laura's device. "We came here in peace. Any offense was unintentional." Kale 7 tilted its head slightly, its multifaceted eyes locking onto Mitchell. For a moment, it seemed to consider his words. Then, without warning, it emitted another series of sharp, discordant sounds. The translation appeared on the screen. Intent is irrelevant. Your actions are an affront to our laws. She glanced at her device, desperately trying to figure out what had gone wrong. The phrase she'd chosen meant to express gratitude had been flagged as offensive. How could this have happened? The software was supposed to account for cultural nuances, but clearly, something had slipped through the cracks. Dr. Emily Dawson shifted uneasily beside her, clutching her tablet tightly. "What did you say?" she whispered, her voice barely audible even through their masks. "I don't know." Yet Laura replied, her hands trembling as she scrolled through the device's logs. "It mistranslated something. I need time to fix it." But time was a luxury they didn't have. The Valens weren't interested in explanations or excuses. They moved with deliberate precision, surrounding the humans and herding them toward the exit. Two of the aliens stepped forward, their segmented limbs clicking softly as they gestured for the delegation to leave the chamber. "This isn't right," Sam Turner blurted out, his frustration boiling over. "We didn't mean to insult anyone." His words were translated automatically, though the effect was far from calming. Kale 7's markings flared brighter, and it let out a low, rumbling sound that reverberated through the room. Laura didn't need a translation to understand the message. They were in serious trouble. As the group was escorted outside, Laura tried to think of a way to salvage the situation. Her mind raced through possible solutions, but each one felt more futile than the last. The mistranslation wasn't just a minor error, it was a breach of protocol, so severe that it had triggered a formal accusation of war crimes. By alien standards, there was no gray area here. Either they were guilty, or they weren't. Once back at the landing site, the Valens confiscated the human vessel, sealing it inside a transparent energy field that shimmered faintly under the dim light of the dying star. The delegation was then led to a nearby structure. Dome-like building constructed from materials that seemed to shift and ripple like liquid metal. Inside, the walls glowed faintly, casting a soft, otherworldly light over everything. The humans were placed in separate containment pods, each one made of smooth, translucent material that allowed them to see but not touch. Laura found herself alone, her thoughts spiraling as she replayed the events in her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about the mistranslation, the moment when everything had gone horribly wrong. What had she missed? Overlooked? Hours passed, or maybe it was days. Time became hard to track in the sterile, unchanging environment. Food and water were provided in small portions, delivered through openings in the pod's walls. The Valens monitored their captives silently, their glowing markings dimming and brightening in patterns that Laura couldn't decipher. Occasionally, Kale 7 would appear, its presence dominating the space. Each time, Laura braced herself for the worst, but nothing changed. They remained trapped, isolated, and powerless. Despite the dire circumstances, Laura refused to give up. She spent every waking moment analyzing the translation device, searching for clues about what had gone wrong. The pod's confinement limited her movements, but she used what little freedom she had to experiment with different phrases and settings. Slowly, she began to piece together the problem. The issue lay in the complexity of the Valen language. Unlike human languages, which relied heavily on context and tone, the Valens communicated using precise harmonic frequencies layered with subtle variations in rhythm and pitch. A single misstep a fraction of a second too long or too short could completely alter the meaning of a word. In this case, the phrase Laura had chosen to express gratitude carried an undertone of mockery when paired with the wrong frequency. It wasn't intentional, but to the Valens, intent didn't matter, only results did. Realizing this gave Laura some clarity, but it also deepened her despair. Fixing the mistake wouldn't be easy, especially since the Valens showed no interest in listening to her side of the story. Every attempt to communicate directly with them ended in failure, their responses cold and dismissive. Even Captain Mitchell's attempts to negotiate their release only seemed to make things worse. One day or night, depending on how you counted, Sam managed to get a message to Laura through the walls of their pods. He tapped out a pattern on the surface, mimicking Morse code. Laura recognized the rhythm immediately and responded in kind. "They're monitoring us," Sam's taps read. "But I've been working on disabling the containment field. Progress is slow, though." Laura's heart leaped at the news. If anyone could find a way to break them free, it was Sam. Still, she knew better than to get her hopes up. The Valens' technology was advanced, and their security measures were likely designed to withstand tampering. But having something to focus on, even a slim chance of escape, gave her a renewed sense of purpose. Meanwhile, Dr. Dawson continued to observe the Valens from her own pod, taking notes whenever possible. Though her primary expertise was in biology, she had always been curious about alien cultures. Now stranded and accused of a crime they hadn't committed, she saw an opportunity to learn something valuable. She studied the way the Valens interacted with each other, noting patterns in their behavior and communication. One observation stood out. While they appeared rigid and unyielding, there were moments when their glowing markings dimmed slightly, almost imperceptibly. To Dawson, this suggested internal conflict or hesitation, though she couldn't be sure. Laura noticed it too. During one of KL7's visits, she caught a glimpse of this subtle change. It was fleeting, barely noticeable, but it gave her an idea. Maybe the Valens weren't as united as they seemed. Maybe there was a crack in their resolve, however small, that she could exploit. Summoning her courage, Laura addressed KL7 during its next visit. "Please," she said, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. "I understand we made a mistake, but it wasn't intentional. We came here to build trust, not to cause harm." Her words were translated into harmonics, filling the room with soft, melodic tones. Kelseven paused, its markings flickering faintly. For a moment, Laura thought she saw something, a hint of doubt, perhaps, or curiosity. But just as quickly, the alien leader regained its composure, its expression unreadable once again. "Your words mean nothing," came the translation. "Actions define truth." Though disheartened, Laura refused to let the rejection deter her. She realized that appealing to logic or reason might not work with the Valens. Their culture operated on principles vastly different from those of humanity. If she wanted to sway them, she needed to speak their language, not just literally, but figuratively. Over the next few days, Laura focused on learning as much as she could about the Valens' customs and values. She paid close attention to their reactions, studying the nuances of their body language and vocalizations. With each passing hour, she grew more determined to find a way to bridge the gap between their worlds. Then, unexpectedly, KL7 assigned one of its advisors to work with Laura. The advisor, identified as Zyron, was smaller than the others, with markings that shifted in intricate patterns. Its demeanor was less hostile, almost curious. When it approached Laura's pod, she felt a spark of hope. Zyron communicated through a series of harmonics, which Laura's device struggled to translate accurately. But over time they developed a rudimentary form of dialogue. Zyron asked questions about Earth's languages and customs, showing genuine interest in human culture. In return, Laura shared insights about the Valens' communication style, demonstrating her growing understanding of their language. Through these interactions, Laura began to see a glimmer of possibility. If she could prove her sincerity and willingness to learn, maybe, just maybe, she could earn the Valens' trust. It was a long shot, but it was all she had, as the days turned into weeks. The human delegation remained imprisoned, their fate uncertain. Yet amidst the tension and uncertainty, Laura held on to one unwavering belief. Mistakes could be forgiven. Bridges could be rebuilt, and even the widest gaps could be crossed, if you were willing to take the first step. Laura's days blurred together, each one marked by the same routine: meals delivered silently, the hum of alien machinery, and Zyron's occasional visits. At first, their conversations were awkward, filled with missteps and mistranslations. But as time passed, Laura began to notice patterns in Zyron's behavior. The alien seemed genuinely curious about Earth, asking questions that went beyond surface-level details. It wanted to know how humans expressed emotions, resolved conflicts, and built trust. Through these exchanges, Laura learned more about the Valens' culture. Their society was deeply rooted in harmony, both literal and metaphorical. To them, communication wasn't just about exchanging information. It was an art form, a way of aligning minds and intentions. Mistranslations or misinterpretations disrupted this harmony, creating what they called discord. Discord wasn't merely inconvenient, it was dangerous, capable of unraveling relationships and destabilizing entire communities. This understanding gave Laura new insight into why the Valens had reacted so strongly to her mistake. In their eyes, she hadn't just made an error, she had introduced chaos into their carefully balanced world. And while human cultures often valued forgiveness and second chances, the Valens didn't operate that way. For them, accountability was absolute. Mistakes had consequences regardless of intent. Despite this harsh reality, Laura found herself growing closer to Xiren. The alien's curiosity mirrored her own, creating a fragile connection between them. One day during one of their sessions, Xiren tilted its head slightly, a gesture Laura had come to interpret as thoughtfulness, and asked a question through its harmonics. "What drives your people to explore?" The translation device read. "Why do you seek contact with others?" Laura hesitated before answering. She'd spent years studying languages and cultures, but no one had ever asked her such a fundamental question. Finally, she spoke, choosing her words carefully. "Humans are curious by nature. We want to understand the universe, to find our place in it. Meeting other species like yours, it gives us hope. Hope that we're not alone." Xiren's markings shifted subtly, pulsing in a pattern Laura hadn't seen before. Was it intrigue? Approval? She couldn't be sure, but the response felt meaningful. Their bond deepened further when Xiren began sharing fragments of Valen history. Through broken translations and gestures, Laura pieced together a story of survival and adaptation. Long ago, the Valens' homeworld had faced environmental collapse, forcing them to abandon their planet and seek refuge among the stars. Their journey had been fraught with challenges, including encounters with hostile species who misunderstood or outright rejected their ways of life. Over time, they had developed strict cultural norms to protect themselves from further harm. Hearing this, Laura felt a pang of guilt. Her mistake had reopened old wounds, reminding the Valens of past betrayals. Yet she also saw an opportunity. If she could show them that humanity wasn't like those other species, if she could prove that humans were willing to listen and learn, maybe, there was still a chance to repair the damage. Meanwhile, Sam Turner worked tirelessly on disabling the containment field. Using tools scavenged from his pod and scraps of knowledge gained from observing the Valens technology, he managed to create a makeshift interface. It wasn't perfect, but it allowed him to bypass some of the system's safeguards. He tapped out updates to Laura whenever he could, keeping her informed of his progress. "Almost there," one message read, "but I need more time." Laura knew time was running out. Kale 7 visited less frequently now, and when it did, its demeanor grew increasingly cold. The alien leaders seemed to have lost patience, viewing the human delegation as little more than prisoners awaiting judgment. Laura feared what might happen if they couldn't find a solution soon. Dr. Emily Dawson, meanwhile, focused on gathering data. From her pod, she observed the Valens' environment, noting subtle changes in temperature, light, and even the faint vibrations in the air. Her scientific instincts told her something was off. The Valens' glowing markings, which had once pulsed steadily, now flickered intermittently. Their movements, once fluid and precise, occasionally faltered. Something was wrong, not just with the human situation, but with the Valens themselves. One evening, as Laura prepared for another session with Xiren, she noticed a shift in the atmosphere. The usual hum of machinery was quieter, almost subdued. When Xiren arrived, its markings dimmed noticeably, and its posture seemed less confident than usual. For the first time, Laura sensed vulnerability in the alien. "What troubles your people?" she asked gently, hoping the translation device wouldn't distort her tone. Xiren hesitated before responding. Its harmonics were softer, tinged with what Laura interpreted as sadness. The device translated, "Our world fades. Despite our efforts, balance eludes us. Laura's heart sank. She pressed further, asking questions about the Valen's current struggles. Bit by bit, Zyron revealed the truth. The environmental collapse that had driven them from their homeworld centuries ago was happening again. This time, however, they lacked the resources to escape. Their temporary settlements were failing. Their attempts to restore ecological stability had met with limited success. The revelation struck Laura like a thunderclap. Here was a species facing extinction, clinging to survival against overwhelming odds. And here she was, part of a delegation accused of mocking their very existence. The irony wasn't lost on her. Humanity, with all its flaws and imperfections, might hold the key to saving the Valens, but only if they could overcome the barrier of mistrust. Inspired by this realization, Laura formulated a bold plan. She decided to propose a trade. In exchange for leniency, the humans would share Earth's most advanced ecological restoration techniques. These methods, developed over decades of combating climate change and habitat destruction, could potentially help the Valens stabilize their settlements. It was a risky proposition, one that required sacrifice on both sides. But Laura believed it was their best shot at redemption. When Kale 7 next appeared, Laura seized the opportunity, summoning every ounce true. When Kale 7 next appeared, Laura seized the opportunity, summoning every ounce of courage she had. She stepped as close to the edge of her containment pod as she could, and addressed the alien leader directly. Her voice trembled slightly, but she forced herself to speak clearly. Kale 7, she began. Her words translated into harmonic tones by her device. I know we made a mistake. I know it caused harm, and for that, I take full responsibility. But I also believe there's a way to make things right. Kale 7's glowing markings flickered faintly, though its expression remained unreadable. Laura pressed on, knowing this might be her only chance. My people have faced challenges similar to yours. We've struggled with environmental collapse, with losing our homes, with trying to survive in a changing world. And though we've made many mistakes along the way, we've also learned how to heal. We've developed technologies and methods to restore ecosystems, to bring balance back to damaged environments. If you're willing, we can share these techniques with you. They might help your people stabilize your settlements and protect your future. The room fell silent. For a long moment, Kale 7 didn't move or respond. Its multifaceted eyes locked onto Laura, studying her intently. Then, finally, it emitted a series of soft, melodic sounds. The translation device struggled to process them, but after a pause, the screen displayed. Explain further. Laura exhaled sharply, relief washing over her. She hadn't expected an immediate yes, but the fact that Kale 7 was even considering. Her proposal gave her hope, drawing on everything she'd learned from Zyrene. She explained Earth's history of environmental crises. From deforestation and pollution to rising sea levels and mass extinctions, she described the innovations humanity had developed to combat these issues: advanced filtration systems, genetically modified plants capable of thriving in harsh conditions, renewable energy sources that reduced reliance on finite resources. As she spoke, Kale 7's markings shifted subtly, pulsing in patterns Laura hadn't seen before. Was it skepticism? Curiosity? She couldn't tell, but the alien leader listened without interruption, its posture rigid, yet attentive. When Laura finished, Kale 7 turned to Zyron, exchanging a series of rapid harmonics. Zyron responded, its tones softer and more measured. Laura watched anxiously, wishing she could understand their conversation. Finally, Kale 7 faced her again, its markings dimming slightly a gesture. Laura now recognized his contemplation. Your offer will be considered, came the translation. But trust must first be earned. It wasn't a rejection, but it wasn't acceptance either. Still, Laura felt a surge of determination. Earning trust wouldn't be easy, especially given the gravity of her earlier mistake. But if the Valens were willing to entertain the idea, then she was ready to do whatever it took to prove herself. Over the next several days, Laura worked tirelessly to build rapport with Zyron. Their sessions became more frequent, and the conversations grew deeper. Zyron shared additional details about the Valens' struggles, including the specific challenges they faced in maintaining stable habitats. Laura listened carefully, asking questions and offering insights whenever possible. Slowly but surely, she began to earn Zyron's respect, or at least something close to it. During one session, Zyron asked a question that caught Laura off guard. "Why do you fight for us?" the translation device read. "You owe us nothing. Your own people are safe." Laura hesitated, searching for the right words. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said finally. "We made a mistake, and we hurt you. That doesn't mean we should walk away. It means we should try harder to fix what we broke. Helping others isn't just about survival, it's about connection, about proving that we're better than our worst moments." Zyron's markings pulsed faintly, and for the first time, Laura thought she saw something resembling approval. The alien tilted its head slightly, a gesture that seemed almost human in its curiosity, while Laura focused on diplomacy. Sam Turner continued his efforts to disable the containment field. Progress was slow, hampered by the complexity of the Valen's technology and the constant risk of detection. But he refused to give up, driven by the belief that freedom, even temporary freedom, could give the team a fighting chance. One night, after hours of painstaking work, Sam managed to create a small window of opportunity. By rerouting power through a secondary system, he temporarily weakened the energy barrier surrounding the pods. The effect lasted only a few minutes, but it was enough for the humans to move freely within the dome. Sam immediately used the brief period of mobility to gather information. He examined the structure's layout, noting exits and potential escape routes. He also discovered something unexpected, a terminal displaying data about the Valen's current settlements. The information confirmed Dr. Dawson's earlier suspicions. Their habitats were failing at an alarming rate. Entire colonies were on the brink of collapse, and the Valen's attempts to reverse the damage were falling short. When the containment field reactivated, trapping everyone once again, Sam tapped out a message to Laura. "Got something big. Their homeworld is dying faster than we thought. If we can help, we might save them and ourselves." Laura's heart raced as she processed the news. The stakes were higher than ever, but so was the potential reward. Saving the Valens wasn't just about redemption. It was about forging a lasting alliance between two species. An alliance built not on fear or mistrust, but on mutual aid and understanding. Dr. Emily Dawson played a crucial role in shaping the human strategy. Using the data Sam had gathered, she analyzed the Valen's ecological challenges and compared them to Earth's past crises. She identified key areas where human technology could make the biggest impact, such as water purification, soil regeneration, and sustainable agriculture. With limited resources, she drafted a detailed plan outlining how these solutions could be adapted for the Valen's unique environment. Her findings added weight to Laura's proposal, giving it a solid scientific foundation. The delegation for another meeting, Laura presented the plan alongside Dr. Dawson's research. This time, the response was different. KO7's markings brightened noticeably. It exchanged a long series of harmonics with Zyron. Finally, KO7 addressed the humans. "Your offer is acceptable," the translation device read. "But one condition remains. The translator must stay behind." Laura froze, her mind struggling to process the demand. "It stay behind? As in permanently?"
Oh.
She glanced at Captain Mitchell, who looked equally stunned. Before anyone could protest, KO7 continued. "Trust cannot be restored without accountability. You, Laura Bennett, will remain as a symbol of your people's commitment to peace. Should your actions fail, your presence will serve as penance." The room fell silent. Laura felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Staying meant sacrificing her freedom and, possibly her life, for the sake of humanity's future. Leaving meant abandoning the Valens to their fate, undoing all the progress she'd worked so hard to achieve. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "If that's what it takes, I'll stay." Words sent ripples through the group. "Captain," Mitchell argued fiercely against the idea, insisting that no single person should bear the burden alone. But Laura held firm, her resolve unwavering. "This isn't just about me," she said quietly. "It's about showing the Valens that we're serious, that we're willing to put everything on the line to make things right." Reluctantly, The others agreed. Though the decision weighed heavily on them, they knew Laura was right. Sometimes, sacrifices were necessary to build bridges, as preparations began for the humans' departure. Laura recorded a final message for her family back on Earth. Her voice wavered as she spoke, but her words carried strength and conviction. "Don't know what the future holds," she said, staring into the camera, "but I do know this. We have a chance to change things, to prove that humanity is capable of more than just destruction. If staying here helps the Valens survive, if it helps us find common ground, then it's worth it. Please tell everyone. Tell them I'm proud of what I've done." The message ended, and Laura wiped away tears as she prepared to say goodbye. Though the road ahead would be difficult, she felt a strange sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, she believed not just in herself, but in the possibility of a brighter future for both species. And as the human delegation boarded their ship and departed, leaving her behind among the Valens, Laura stood tall, ready to face whatever came next. The human delegation's departure left Laura alone in a world that was both alien and strangely familiar. The Valens' massive dome-like structure hummed softly around her, its walls glowing faintly with shifting patterns of light, though the containment pods were gone, replaced by a small living area designated for her use. Laura couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every movement she made seemed to draw the attention of the Valens, their multifaceted eyes following. Her every step at first, the isolation was overwhelming. The absence of Captain Mitchell's steady leadership, Dr. Dawson's quiet curiosity, and Sam's techsy humor left a void that no amount of determination could fill. Laura spent hours replaying memories of their time together, their shared laughter during tense moments, their whispered conversations about Earth, her unwavering support when things seemed hopeless. But nostalgia wouldn't help her now. She had chosen this path, and she owed it to herself and to humanity to see it through. Zyron became her primary companion, visiting her regularly to discuss plans for implementing Earth's ecological solutions. The alien's demeanor had softened since their earlier meetings, its markings now pulsing in warm, rhythmic patterns that Laura interpreted as signs of trust. Together, they pored over schematics and data, adapting human technologies to suit the Valens' unique environment. It wasn't easy. The differences between their worlds were vast, and many of Earth's methods required significant modification. But Laura's persistence paid off. Slowly but surely, progress began to take shape. One of the first projects focused on water purification. The Valens settlements relied heavily on underground reservoirs, which were rapidly depleting due to contamination. Using Earth's advanced filtration systems as a blueprint, Elara and Zyron designed a network of portable purifiers capable of removing toxins while replenishing the dwindling supply. When the first prototype was tested, the results were promising. Clean water flowed freely once again, sparking cautious optimism among the Valens. Encouraged by this success, Laura turned her attention to agriculture. The Valens' food sources were failing, unable to adapt to the harsh conditions of their temporary habitats. Drawing on Earth's experience with genetically modified crops, she proposed introducing resilient plant varieties engineered to thrive in nutrient-poor soil. Zyron was skeptical at first, concerned about potential side effects. But Laura assured the alien that these modifications were safe. After weeks of testing, the new crops took root, producing yields far greater than anyone had expected. Each achievement brought Laura closer to the Valens, earning their respect, and in some cases, their friendship. Though communication remained challenging, Laura found ways to bridge the gap. She taught Zyron simple phrases in English, delighting in the alien's attempts to mimic human speech. In return, Zyron introduced her to aspects of Valen culture, sharing stories of their ancestors and demonstrating traditional harmonics used in ceremonies. These exchanges fostered a bond that transcended language, creating a foundation of mutual understanding. But not everyone welcomed Laura's presence. Some Valens viewed her as a symbol of humanity's arrogance, a reminder of the discord her mistake had caused. They avoided her, their markings dimming whenever she approached. Others, however, saw her efforts as proof of humanity's sincerity. Kale 7 remained distant, observing her work with a mixture of scrutiny and caution. Though the alien leader never openly praised her, Laura noticed subtle changes in its behavior moments, when its markings brightened slightly, when it lingered just a little longer during inspections. Despite these challenges, Laura refused to let negativity deter her. She threw herself into her work, determined to prove that humanity's intentions were genuine. Her days were filled with problem-solving, experimentation, and collaboration. Nights were quieter, offering moments of reflection under the dim glow of the dying star outside. During these solitary hours, Laura allowed herself to think about Earth, the bustling cities, the vibrant forests, the endless oceans. She missed it all desperately, but she also felt a growing sense of purpose. Here, among the Valens, she was making a difference, and that knowledge kept her going. As weeks turned into months, Laura's role evolved beyond that of a translator or scientist. She became a mediator, a teacher, and sometimes even a counselor. The Valens often sought her advice on matters ranging from resource allocation to conflict resolution. At first, Laura hesitated, unsure if she was qualified to weigh in on such complex issues. But over time, she realized that her perspective, shaped by years of studying languages and cultures, was valuable. By listening carefully and asking thoughtful questions, she helped the Valens find solutions that honored their traditions while embracing innovation. Her growing influence didn't go unnoticed. One day, as she walked through the settlement, a group of young Valens approached her. Their markings pulsed brightly, signaling excitement. Through broken harmonics and gestures, they asked if she would teach them about Earth. Surprised but delighted, Laura agreed. Over the following weeks, she held informal lessons, sharing stories about human history, art, and science. The sessions quickly became popular, drawing crowds of curious Valens eager to learn. Among her students was a particularly enthusiastic individual named Rinnick, whose quick wit and sharp mind reminded Laura of Sam Turner. Rinnick often stayed after the lessons to ask questions, his harmonics filled with curiosity. "Why do humans create?" he asked one day, his translation device struggling to capture the nuance of his tone. "What drives you to build and explore?" Laura smiled, pausing to consider the question. "Humans are dreamers," she said finally. "We imagine possibilities and then work to make them real. Sometimes we fail, but even failure teaches us something. It's how we grow." Rinnick's markings flickered thoughtfully, and Laura knew her answer had resonated. These interactions gave her hope, not just for the Valens' survival, but for the future of their relationship with humanity. If two such different species could learn from each other, perhaps peace was possible after all. Back on Earth, news of Laura's sacrifice inspired admiration and debate. Her recorded message, transmitted via the departing delegation, reached global audiences within days. People marveled at her courage, calling her a hero who had put the needs of others above her own. Yet there were critics too, those who questioned whether leaving her behind was truly necessary. Some argued that the Valens' demand for accountability was unfair, a relic of their rigid cultural norms. Others pointed out that Laura's actions set a dangerous precedent, one that could be exploited in future encounters with alien species. Despite the controversy, Laura's story sparked a wave of interest in interstellar diplomacy. Governments invested more resources into language studies and cultural research, recognizing the importance of understanding before action. Schools incorporated lessons about the Valens into their curricula, teaching children about the delicate balance required to maintain harmony across species. For Laura, these developments were bittersweet. She had made, but she couldn't help feeling disconnected from the world she had left behind. Letters and messages from Earth arrived sporadically, sent via automated probes, programmed to navigate the vast distances between stars. Each one brought updates about her family, her colleagues, and the ongoing efforts to strengthen ties with the Valens. Reading them reminded Laura of what she had sacrificed, but also of why she had done it by the end of her first year among the Valens. Laura's initial fears had faded, replaced by a deep sense of belonging. She had learned to navigate their society, earning trust and forging friendships that transcended species. Her work had saved countless lives, stabilizing settlements and laying the groundwork for long-term survival. And though the road ahead remained uncertain, Laura faced it with confidence. She knew she had made the right choice not just for herself, but for humanity and the Valens alike. As she stood beneath the shimmering expanse of the alien sky, Laura felt a profound sense of gratitude. For all its challenges, her journey had taught her something invaluable, that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, connection was always possible. All it took was patience, empathy, and a willingness to listen. And in that moment, surrounded by the beings she had once feared, Laura knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Months turned into years, and Laura Bennett settled deeper into life among the Valens. Her days were no longer defined by the uncertainty of her early days, but by a rhythm that felt almost natural now. She woke each morning to the faint hum of the settlement's energy systems, the glow of bioluminescent walls casting soft light across her living space. Outside, the Valens moved with purpose, their shimmering exoskeletons reflecting the dim light of the dying star. To anyone else, it might have seemed like an alien world, cold and distant. But to Laura, it had become home. Her role had expanded far beyond what she'd imagined when she first arrived. She was no longer just a translator or a scientist. She was a bridge between two species, a guide helping both humans and Valens navigate the complexities of coexistence. Every day brought new challenges, but also new opportunities to learn and grow. The mistrust that had once defined their relationship was slowly giving way to something stronger: respect. One of Laura's proudest achievements was the establishment of a shared research center, built collaboratively by humans and Valens. It served as a hub for innovation and cultural exchange. Scientists from Earth traveled to the Valen settlements periodically, bringing fresh ideas and technologies. In return, the Valens shared their own knowledge, revealing insights about sustainable living and advanced energy systems that humanity had yet to master. Laura acted as the center's director, overseeing projects and ensuring smooth communication between teams. It wasn't always easy. Misunderstandings still arose, but they were resolved more quickly now. Thanks to the growing trust between the two groups, the Valens themselves began to change in subtle ways. Their rigid adherence to traditions softened. As they embraced new possibilities, some adopted human methods of teaching, using visual aids and storytelling to pass down knowledge. Others experimented with hybrid technologies, combining Earth's tools with their own innovations. Even Kale 7, once so unyielding, showed signs of evolution. Its interactions with Laura became less formal, its markings pulsing warmly during discussions. Though it never openly praised her, Laura sensed a quiet acknowledgement of her contributions, recognition that she had earned her place among them. Laura's lessons with the younger generation of Valens continued to thrive. Rinnick, her most enthusiastic student, had grown into a leader within his community, advocating for greater collaboration with humanity. He often accompanied Laura on visits to other settlements, translating her words into harmonics for those who struggled with human speech. Together, they became a symbol of unity. Proof that cooperation was possible, even between vastly different species. But not everything was perfect. Challenges remained, both practical and emotional. Supplies from Earth were inconsistent, delayed by the vast distances between stars. Equipment broke down, requiring creative solutions to repair. And then there were the moments of loneliness, the ache of missing her family and friends back home. Letters and messages helped, but they couldn't fully replace the warmth of physical presence. On some nights, Laura stared at the stars, wondering if she would ever see Earth again. Yet, despite these hardships, Laura found joy in unexpected places. She celebrated Valen festivals, learning their rituals, and participating in ceremonies that honored their ancestors. She marveled at their art, intricate patterns of light and sound that told stories older than humanity itself. And she formed friendships not just with Zyron and Rinnick, but with others who had come to see her as one of their own. One day, as Laura walked through the settlement, she noticed a group of children gathered around a small device. It was a prototype translation tool designed to convert human speech into harmonic frequencies and vice versa. The children laughed as they experimented with it, their voices blending with the melodic tones of the machine. Watching them, Laura felt a surge of pride. This was the future she had worked so hard to build, a world where understanding transcended barriers, where differences were celebrated rather than feared. Later that evening, Laura received a message. From Earth, it was rare for communications to reach her directly, given the time it took for signals to travel across space. But this one was special. It came from Captain Ryan Mitchell, now retired and living quietly in a small coastal town. His words were simple but heartfelt. "Laura, we've heard about everything you've done. You've given us hope, a chance to truly connect with another species. I can't imagine how hard it must be, being so far away. But know this, you're not forgotten. Humanity remembers you, and we're grateful." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she read the message. Gratitude washed over her, not just for Mitchell's kind words, but for the reminder that she was part of something larger than herself. Her sacrifice hadn't been in vain. It had paved the way for a brighter future, one where humanity and the Valens could stand side by side. As the years passed, Laura's story became legend. On Earth, she was celebrated as a pioneer, a woman who had risked everything to forge peace. Statues were erected in her honor, and schools taught her name alongside those of history's greatest explorers. Among the Valens, she was remembered differently, not as a hero, but as a friend. They spoke of her kindness, her determination, and her unwavering belief in the power of connection. When Laura finally grew too old to continue her work, the Valens honored her with a ceremony unlike any other. Under the flickering light of their dying star, they gathered to celebrate her life and legacy. Harmonic melodies filled the air, layered with glowing patterns that pulsed in sync with their emotions. Zyron stood beside her, its markings shining brightly while Rinnick addressed the crowd in both Valen harmonics and broken English. "She taught us," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "She listened. She stayed when others would have left. Because of her, we are stronger. Because of her, we are united." Laura smiled, tears streaming down her face as she looked out at the sea of glowing figures. She had spent years worrying about whether she belonged, whether she had made the right choice. Now, surrounded by the beings she had once feared, she knew the answer. She had found her place not on Earth, not among the stars, but here, in the hearts of those she'd come to love. In the end, Laura didn't return to Earth. Her final days were spent in the settlement, surrounded by friends and students who cared for her as family. Now, when she passed away, the Valens buried her beneath a tree in Earth species she had introduced to their world. Its branches stretched toward the sky, a symbol of growth and connection. Years later, travelers passing through the Valen settlements would stop to admire the tree. Some whispered stories of the human woman who had changed the course of history. Others simply stood in silence, feeling the weight of her legacy. Laura Bennett had started as a translator, a woman tasked with bridging languages. But she had become so much more a builder of bridges between worlds, a testament to the power of empathy and understanding, and though she was gone, her work lived on. The bonds she had forged endured, growing stronger with each passing generation. Humanity and the Valens continued to collaborate, sharing knowledge and resources as equals. Conflicts arose, as they always did, but they were resolved through dialogue and mutual respect. Laura's dream of lasting peace had taken root. Nurtured by those who believed in its possibility, under the light of the dying star, the tree swayed, gently in the breeze, its leaves whispering secrets of a brighter future. Somewhere Laura smiled, knowing that her journey had been worth every step.